Welcome to the Swimming from Home talk show. I'm here with Steve Roush, CEO of ASCA. To get things started, Steve, just give me a general synopsis of how ASCA is doing during this quarantine period and maybe some of the things that they are doing during this quarantine period.
Sure. I think we're all adapting is the word and staying flexible. But the coronavirus has caused some challenges for us just because of the fact that our main revenue source is doing clinics around the world as well as domestically in regional clinics. And so those have all been shut down, and rightly so, as far as the avoiding large groups and such. However, our online education and certification programs have received a bit of an uptick, I think, due in part to coaches having a little bit more, if you call it free time, but time to pursue their educational objectives. We've seen an increase there. So we've also created some new platforms to try and generate more information out there for coaches in different platforms. One being our Doc Talks, which are discussions on coaching, 6 to 15-minute discussions with coaches on a topic that they can come on, and we release 2 of those on average a week, just for coaches to stay up on certain topics. A lot of them have dealt with the issues that they're facing right now during the virus. The other part is our ASCA Live, where we're doing webinars twice a week that are 60 minutes in length, that we're delving into various topics that I think coaches are looking for more clarity on and questions on. Again, kind of tapping into the fact that there is an abundant amount of free time going on right now with so many that are out of the water and looking to stay fresh, keep their minds moving, and understanding what the other people are doing for ideas, and preparing, basically getting them prepared for when this finally does open up and when we are able to get back to whatever the new normal will be.
Yeah. So that leads us into, from an ASCA perspective, how are you planning for when pools are available, when coaches and athletes can get back on deck? What do you see as that reintroduction time looking like?
Well, again, following the advice of the CDC and the various health agencies that are putting information out right now, I think it's going to be very creative for a lot of clubs to adhere to the social distancing guidelines that are being put forward. As we all know, anybody that's witnessed a swim practice, social distancing would probably be the furthest thing that's going on in between those sets and at the end of each of the ends of the pool. So really looking at that, it really is going to be something of an education process and a sharing of information on ways in which you can make it work, be creative, yet still be able to conduct your business, run your practices, and get the swimmers back in the pool.
Mm-hmm. Do you have certain ways that, I guess specifically, coaches can get creative with that process? Has ASCA been thinking about that, or providing any ideas?
We've been talking with our coaches. Again, as you as you enter into this, there's so much information coming at you at it's like drinking from a fire hose, that you're trying to absorb what the latest information is and provide guidance. And by the time you've come up with something, there's some new guidelines that have been released. So I think which is why we're doing these various platforms of the Doc Talks and our Ask a Live, is to get groups of people in there just to talk about this stuff, talk about what they're planning on doing, talking about what their creative minds are. So I don't think there's going to be a set answer, partly because our swim clubs, the 3,000 that are in the U.S. Are all so different. I mean, there is no one size fits all, and all operate the same way, use varying degrees of recreational facilities around the country that are either owned, operated, managed by different entities. So they're all going to come with their own separate set of rules, as well as we saw with how the country shut down, and that it was different from state to state. I know here in Florida it was different from county to county. And I know that it was different within our county from city to city and within the county. So, I have a stack of papers with each entity telling me how to adhere to the stay-at-home order that the governor issued. And I think that's going to be the true challenge for coaches, to stay on top of what they're within their jurisdiction on what the rules are and coming up with plans. But I think we can share some best practices within these platforms that allow coaches to get some sparks of ideas on how they can go about conducting their swim club when the cloud rises.
Yeah. Have you personally heard some ideas in these forums, or gotten some feedback that you really like, maybe for your area, or maybe just for a different area that might not apply to you, but you're like, hey, that's something that could work for that group of people?
Yeah, the ones that seem to make sense to me are running intervals where you're using both ends of your pool. Um, Unfortunately, what it's looking like is that the days of crowding your pool with a lot of kids is not going to happen anytime soon. And we all know that that's nice, especially if you're a club that only gets 2 hours, let's say, in the day to be able to conduct a workout. But the ones that do control their venues are talking about having long stretches throughout the day. The coaches, again, working longer days, but doing their best to adhere to the numbers that they're allowed to put into a lane, keeping them and literally running the same workout at both ends of the pool, but that way not everybody is at the same end resting in between the intervals as well. So it's going to come up with ways to be creative, ways to keep moving the swimmers. And again, I think from everything I've read too, I don't know if the pool is necessarily as big of a problem as getting them in and out, the locker rooms, the shower rooms. Those are where I think the social distancing will have to be enforced as well going forward.
Yeah. So that kind of makes me think, and you might not even have an answer for this, but if coaches and swimmers are having to adjust and do things differently once they get back, is that going to affect how ASCA starts writing policy or determining certification? Just
I don't
because
think
the
it'll have
landscape is changing.
Yeah, I don't think it'll have a big impact on that part of it. I think it will open up a whole new area that we'll have to focus on from an education and awareness standpoint, which,
Mm-hmm.
education is our number one mission. And so as we start to learn, and again, it will be, adapt as we go along, because rules will come up and you'll have to adapt. But I do think that it opens up an education path that we'll have to do a major emphasis on to make sure that coaches fully understand how they can operate while still complying. Because if you know, if you read it and say, well, I can't run, your mindset is that I can't run my practice the way I've always run practice. I've got news for you. I think it's going to be a long time before that day comes. So you're going to have to come into it more with a whiteboard thinking approach, saying, okay, here are the rules of engagement. How do I make this work and still accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish with my swim club? And I think we can help with best practices, educational tools, just so that they are up to speed and aware of what to do.
Yeah. Uh, so the ASCA, speaking of education, the ASCA World Clinic, is a pretty monumental event, certainly for swim coaches each year. Does ASCA have a plan for that moving forward yet?
We have this year, the 2020 World Clinic will go into the virtual world. The prospects of everything we've been reading with the CDC and the health agencies really indicate that a mass gathering of 1,000 to 1,200 swim coaches in a ballroom in Orlando was highly unlikely. And so we really had to come up and I wouldn't call it our plan B, but we had to come up with an alternative way to do what we do. And we're very excited to announce that that we're calling it the ASCA Cyber World Clinic, hosted by the ASCA Global Village, because I think a couple of things. We're really excited about the prospect that this now allows us to gather a bigger audience, both domestically and internationally, because we've been challenged to get our international guests here and coaches here because of the fact of the visa issue over the past decade or so. The other piece being that I think looking at the various softwares that we've been researching, and we're starting to settle in on our platform and how we're going to go about it. But there's a lot of exciting opportunities for, virtual networking, a virtual exhibit hall, just some really, it's a whole new world for me. I'm reading every publication they're putting out on the various things that are now available. And I'm really excited because I think we're going to be able to provide even better content, meaning, that we can expand on the content that we have, be able to have interactive sessions while doing a lot of it with pre-production videos on the speeches, but then cutting away to be able to do interactive live Q&A following that talk by the speaker. And it's just, there's some amazing things that are available out there. And I think it allows us to continue the tradition that the ASCA has had of educating coaches, but like I said, potentially to a much larger audience, as well as the fact that in essence, not having the travel costs of the airfare and the hotel room actually can bring the cost down for the coaches to a reasonable level where most will have gone through a little bit of an economic downturn here this year. So I think it still provides them with the opportunity to learn, engage, network, and still be a part of the ASCA World Clinic, while there are some parts of it that we probably will have to suspend this year. I think it'd be very difficult for us to do the banquet honoring the Hall of Fame inductees. So there may be a larger class in 2021 because I don't feel the same same impact on inducting somebody virtually versus having their family, friends and family there as they're inducted. So some of those things are going to be a challenge to be able to do, but I think overall the main mission of it is education, and the tools that we have available are just, to me, pretty impressive. So we're actually kind of excited now as we shifted gears to a cyber world clinic, because as I said before, that whiteboard's now ours to say, okay, how do we want to do this? How can we do it? How can we do it first class, professional, and something that people will really be happy with when we get done with it.
Sure. Yeah, and I think, you see every college and so many, public or high schools and primary schools going online now or going virtual now. And I think, education as a whole in a virtual world, makes sense to me. My follow-up question was going to be about the exhibit hall, because if you've ever been to ASCA, that's my favorite part, is seeing all the swim companies, and all the swim businesses putting on their full display, and seeing all the gear and all the technology that's being developed and being made for our swimming community. So, and you had mentioned a virtual exhibit hall. Can you tell me any more about that?
Sure. It again, you know, I don't want to overuse the word cool, but there's some really cool features
Yeah.
to having, and what it allows to me. And again, we talk about the costs associated. An exhibitor now can have their products on video. As you go through this virtual exhibit hall, you can visit everybody's booth and click on, and the company can get very creative with the video and having coupons and products on sale for periods of time. And we plan on working with our partners and our exhibitors to come up with some really clever ways to do things. One of the things that we talked about is having a exhibitor happy hour where we tell people, okay, yeah, drinks are actually on you, but that we're going to try and drive them there at the same time as a networking opportunity, but just have some fun with it and be creative, think outside the box. But those companies that I think kind of embrace it and run with it will be so blown away by how much more exposure they potentially can have in a virtual exhibit hall than hoping that somebody comes down that aisle that their booth is in a live one. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's the other piece too, is that it allows us as the host organization to give them far more exposure within the way we conduct the educational sessions, that you'll probably see some of these little infomercials, thrown in, and my goal, again, one of the goals that when I came and started in January here, was my three themes for ASCA are educate, entertain, and engage. And I think this is actually providing me with my first real test on those three pillars, and ensuring that we follow those when we go into our cyber world clinic.
That does sound pretty cool and certainly novel, which I think a lot of things are in our world today, given our situation with COVID. Steve, do you have any closing thoughts, maybe on just ASCA moving forward through this pandemic and kind of getting through it as a community?
Well, and again, I am so impressed with our coaching community. I've always thought that it's a rare breed, the swim coach, in many different ways. But I've seen them band together here on a time of crisis, and the ability to work together and look to help out your brethren is so refreshing, because I think, again, a united front facing something this horrific is so much better than, dividing up and going your own way and doing your own thing. And so one of the things that I keep emphasizing within our publications here and newsletter, our magazine, is to stay united, to stay together. And coming out of this, I think we will be so much more unified again, and everyone working on the same cause and trying to get back to the new normal, whatever it will be. But I really do think that this community is an incredible community of special people, and couldn't be prouder of how they're handling a very, very difficult situation.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Steve. I really appreciate it.
Coleman, I enjoyed it. Thanks so much.